and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and joining me once again for a third Premier League preview in a row, it's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. How you doing, buddy?
I am good. I'm all Premier Leagued up.
Are you?
Yeah, we are here today to preview Leicester, Liverpool, both the Manchesters, and Newcastle United.
Are we combining the Manchesters for purposes
why
of the
not?
preview?
Yeah, it's a whole new merger that's happened that no one knows about.
I know who I would bet for coach.
More on that later.
Yeah.
Before we get into Leicester City, up first alphabetically today, as is tradition, we need to catch up on all the transfers that happened between yesterday's show and today. What you got for me, Taylor?
I can tell you that I had to edit today's episode of the Top Drawer Soccer Show, which is not yet out, because Emerson Hyndman has moved to Hibernian, which is frustrating for me because it meant we had to edit out a good 5 to 10 minutes of audio. Maybe more frustrating for you because you have already not gotten a prediction point.
Because I predicted that he'd play more minutes or more games for Bournemouth this year than last year.
You did.
Is it a season-long loan?
It is still January.
So
at least
maybe
that.
he could be back and start every game after January.
Did he play a game for Bournemouth last season?
He did. The last game of the season.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
always the most important game when you've already stayed up is the last game of the season.
So we need that loan to go. I never know. Do we need it to go well so he gets recalled? Do we need it to go medium so that he gets recalled? I never fully understand.
We need it to go so well that Eddie Howe is watching Scottish football every weekend and thinking, why did I let this kid go? Let's get him back in my team.
Seems likely.
For those who don't know, Emerson Hyndman, American. Yeah. That's why we're invested in his
that's why we've led
future.
with Emerson Hyndman moving from Bournemouth to Hibs. Yeah.
Speaking of Americans, we didn't mention Danny Williams yesterday in our Huddersfield Town preview. There's a good reason for that.
Yep.
He's still there.
It's because Huddersfield Town aren't mentioning him either.
Well, yeah, because he got injured late last year. It was basically a broken leg, right? I'm not sure the exact medical definition of what happened, but it
was either his tibula or tibia.
One of the leg bones.
Which one is
one of the leg bones that's connected to the wristwatch.
Yep.
He is...
green thing.
The green thing. As far as we know, he's not even back for pre-season, so... If and when Danny Williams comes back for Huddersfield, it's not going to be the start of the Premier League season.
It will not.
Fingers crossed for Danny Williams, for real, because that's a US men's national team midfielder.
Yeah,
all right.
I agree. The other news that has since been confirmed, Kepa has moved from Athletic Club de Bilbao.
Kepa the keeper?
There we go, Kepa the keeper. To Chelsea with Courtois. Thibaut Courtois moving to Real Madrid.
Yep.
As part of that deal, it seems Mateo Kovacic will be loaned to Chelsea for the season, and I believe there's an option to buy. I don't know if it's part of the deal, if it was a separate deal, but I'm guessing either way, it was involved in the discussions.
I'm imagining a slightly angry Kovacic saying, "Don't you dare call me a make-weight."
Yeah. I mean...
I'm not Andre Gomes.
I mean, it's a good way to get him fired up and get him out of there. It also makes that Chelsea midfield all the more imposing. We talked about it yesterday. They've got Jorginho, they've got N'Golo Kante, they've got many other players. Now I feel like by the end of the season, it will be those two plus Kovacic.
I'd say just add Kovacic to the list of midfielders that Ruben Loftus-Cheek is going to step over.
All right.
On his way to first team football.
Ever the optimist.
Anything else for me, Taylor?
Yeah, it was breaking about 20 minutes before we started recording that Yerry Mina will sign for Everton. That's the report that is like a tier 1 confirmed.
This is the very tall Colombian centre-back who scored, I think, in 3 games in a row from set pieces at the World Cup. Really good player who didn't get many games for Barcelona, but really is he's up there with the best defenders in the world, I think.
Yeah, and
great signing for Everton if it happens.
I think I agree with you. If it happens, because for all the deficiencies we talked about with Everton's back line, he solves a lot of them right away. Simply because...
That's right, high line and all that.
High line and all that. It's exactly what we saw from Colombia. He fits in well there. I think he'll fit in well with Everton. Okay,
any more transfers to update on from recent days?
There's others, but who cares?
There's probably one happening right now.
I'm sure there is.
And for those who don't know, the transfer deadline is Thursday, 5 p.m. British time. So that's like noon tomorrow, Thursday, American time, at which point all transfers will be done before the Premier League season starts. It's a whole new world.
It is. If only they had like an entire summer to try to sign people before the deadline.
I mean, you've done homework before, right? You still always do it last minute, no matter what.
You want to compare me, the high school student, to a person running a billion-dollar club?
I think it's in human nature to do it, even when we're talking billions of dollars.
But it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
But you should have done your homework early as well. You know what I'm saying?
Again, I refuse to accept this analogy.
Should we move on to Leicester City?
If I were getting paid millions of dollars to make my homework happen, I would have made my homework happen on time.
You would have got it in on time. All right, we'll move on. We'll move on from this. Leicester City.
Yeah.
Leicester City are up first. Taylor Rockwell, What's new with Leicester City?
Well, first of all, I want to add that this is the second time in as many shows that Daryl has tried to defend our corporate overlords. So I just want that on record. Yesterday, you blamed the situation at Chelsea on Antonio Conte. Today, you're saying, oh, it's just like a high schooler.
Let's move on to Leicester City.
You're the corporate overlord in this situation.
What's new at Leicester City, Taylor?
I would say what's new is what's gone, because the big story has been Riyad Mahrez departing for Man City.
That is the big news, right? He is the second of the Holy Trinity after N'Golo Kante went last year. Now Riyad Mahrez has gone. Jamie Vardy is the only member of the Holy Premier League winning trinity that still remains at Leicester City.
And I'm sure he's thrilled about that fact. The interesting thing for me with the departure of Riyad Mahrez is that it feels a little bit like Tottenham when Gareth Bale left. And they got all the Gareth Bale money, and they said, we will spend that money, and we will see what happens. I'm guessing Leicester fans are hoping that it ends up more productively.
So should we talk? So manager is Claude Puel. We'll maybe talk about his playing style in a second.
For now.
Since last October, right? He replaced Shakespeare. Shall we talk about what they did with some of that 60 million?
Sure.
I'm sure they would have spent anyway, right? Because they got all that Premier League money. I'm going to start with the signing that I think is a very bad idea. Rachid Ghezal.
Okay.
Rachid Ghezal is an Algerian right winger, just like Riyad Mahrez. They paid £12 million for him from Monaco. I mean, I've watched footage of him. Not as good as Riyad Mahrez. Massively unfair to sign an Algerian right winger just after you sell Riyad Mahrez. This man cannot win.
It does feel like you need a political advisor to come in, because you know that's a thing that the DNC or the RNC would be concerned about. Like, we can't do the exact same thing and expect the same results. People will think we're being lazy. Didn't seem to apply to Leicester. With that in mind, since you've already gone there, my prediction is that Rachid Ghezal will be exciting and infuriating to Leicester fans. And the way to make that specific is that he will draw the most fouls of any Leicester player.
Oh, interesting.
For better or worse.
Why do you think he'll draw the most fouls?
Because he is, for lack of a better way of putting it, strange looking. He is only 6 foot tall. I genuinely thought he was 6'4" because he's so skinny that he has this weird, and he has a weird gait. He has that sort of like long stride run where it looks like when he does step overs, it looks like he's doing them in slow motion because his legs are so long. But then he ends up getting taken out a lot. I think we probably watched a lot of the same clips. He gets clipped, he gets taken down, he gets dragged to the ground because he's gotten around the defender, but he gets a lot of those opportunities, and I think that's almost for the best because a lot of the other times I saw him was very left-footed, cutting back from he plays on the right side, cutting back with his right, shooting with his left, and it goes out of bounds for a goal kick almost every time.
Yep. So I'll be honest, I didn't watch as much as you because I kind of gave up on him after a couple of minutes of clips because I was just like, this guy is not the new Riyad Mahrez. And it's unfair for him to be put in anywhere near that vicinity.
I have a feeling he starts a couple or gets a few minutes in the beginning, and he's one of those players who we see slowly slide to the bench and stay there for a good long while.
Damari Gray will benefit, I think. He'll end up playing more minutes on the right wing. What about other signings? I was more impressed with some of their other signings. I'd like to get to them.
The one that I think was most impressive is the one that cost them the least aside from any loans. It's Johnny Evans. 30-year-old central defender, came from West Brom, £3.6 million. That is a great deal for a player who was linked with Arsenal for like 2 straight seasons and I think would have done very well at Arsenal.
Pep Guardiola was after him for a bit for Manchester City as well. Johnny Evans is a guy I like. I think he was unfairly maligned at Manchester United because he seems to be at fault for a lot of goals. I think part of the reason is Johnny Evans loves to step. Like, he likes to sniff out danger and go and close it down. I think that's a great trait in a central defender. I think a 30-year-old Johnny Evans is great age for a defender with his skill set.
I agree completely. I think Phil Jones is the new Johnny Evans. I think Phil Jones will probably be sold sometime in the next window or two. Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe January, maybe next summer. And I think he'll go to a club and be just fine and be an outstanding center back. I think he just doesn't fit what United want. I think Johnny Evans didn't either. I think he works perfectly for Leicester.
So assuming that Leicester don't sell Harry Maguire, so who's a name you will know from the World Cup, right? Scoring all those headers, being very impressive in that England back three. It's going to be a Johnny Evans, Harry Maguire centre-back partnership. I like the look of that. I like the sound of that. I think that could work. It's a lot of aerial wins from Harry Maguire and a lot of wins on the ground from Johnny Evans. And both of them can, play soccer. Both of them can pass the ball out of the back.
Yep, absolutely. All right. It also feels like it's a Leicester team. I shouldn't say Claude Puel definitely won't be there. It's just there are some question marks around his tenure, but it does feel like
there at the start.
He will. It feels like a team that he is slowly constructing to fit what he wants. So, for example, promoting Ben Chilwell to be the left back last season, that worked very well. It feels like he was looking for a right back that fit his system. He went out and got Ricardo Pereira, 24-year-old right back from FC Porto, £20 million, but that's £20 million for a player who he's already worked with previously, who he knows what they're capable of.
Oh, I didn't know he'd already worked with him. I watched some Pereira footage. He likes to zip forward. He's a pacey fullback. He'll get forward, get a cross in. Very unlike Danny Simpson. So Danny Simpson, I think, worked in the Ranieri system where the back four really stayed back, right? The fullbacks didn't get forward at all. It was just stay home, do a respectable defensive job, and all will be well. Claude Puel's more possession-based. Fullbacks have to get forward and get involved in the attack. Pereira's a much better fit. Thumbs up to Danny Simpson for getting himself a Premier League winners medal back in the day, but I think this is a massive upgrade for Leicester.
I would agree.
At right back. So good stuff from Claude Puel so far in the transfer market. The best one is still to come.
I know, we haven't even mentioned the biggest one. Before we get to the biggest one, the one that I find the most confusing is Danny Ward, 25-year-old Welsh goalkeeper coming from Liverpool for £12 million.
To be a backup.
But it feels like maybe they just saw all the stories about big clubs needing goalkeepers, and they just kind of assumed that they were going to lose Kasper Schmeichel, and so they brought in Danny Ward, and now Kasper Schmeichel is very much still there.
Genuine question, because I don't know the answer. Is that smart on their part? Is that like forward planning, or is it unnecesserally panicky?
It can be both. I mean, it can be...
as if things can be two things.
Exactly. Or stuff can be a variety of things. But yeah, it feels like maybe they brought him in just in case. I saw it written as like it alleviates some of the burden on Kasper Schmeichel, as though playing every single game is like
that's what he
incredibly tiring. Yeah, I think maybe...
That's lazy writing, wherever you read that.
True. I think it's lazy writing born of, I don't know why they did this, so I'm going to try to find a way to explain it.
It would be like if you replaced me with Alexis Guerreros, it would be alleviating the burden of the podcast on Daryl, and I have to go and find another job.
Well, it would just be more so like I signed Alexis Guerreros to be the backup in case Daryl gets tired, is more so what it seems like to me of like, Daryl Grove has been doing it. He's doing just fine. It's not that taxing. So I don't quite know why they did it, other than maybe it's just a way to be able to have a backup, and a capable backup at that. But also, if somebody did come in for Kasper Schmeichel, it's less of a like, we're scrambling, and more like, well, we've got the backup. We don't need to sell. You better up that offer a bit.
Didn't Kasper have a son they could sign?
I mean, is that a joke?
Yeah, just a generational Schmeichel thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was a Casper the Friendly Ghost joke. I didn't really know where you were going with it.
All right, so the final signing, I would argue the most important or most exciting signing, is a number 10. He's basically an old-fashioned creative playmaker. His name is James Maddison, £22.5 million from Norwich City.
Double D Maddison.
Double D? Why double D?
Maddison.
Oh, I see. Double D Maddison. Oh, unlike the former president?
You got it.
Yeah, all right. History with a question mark from Darrell Grove. So our friend John Tolbert, who's a Norwich fan, clued me into James Maddison towards the end of last season. I was a little sceptical, like, is this English kid? They're not really playmakers. Oh, I watched some footage.
What you got?
James Maddison. He's got feints. He's got moves. He's got through balls. Like, it's hard to believe that he's English. He looks like a Spanish playmaker or an Italian playmaker. It's really sort of outside of the usual mould of an English midfielder.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for him at Leicester City.
We'll talk more about... There's a great article at The Athletic, which we'll mention later on, about like the way Premier League clubs choose to make signings and how maybe it's based on faulty logic. This would be an example of not doing that, because they haven't gone after a Premier League midfielder who's proven that he can do it. They're going after a championship midfielder who's probably undervalued because he's playing at a like lower level, and so clubs don't see him as the equivalent. But in reality, we'll see. But it feels like he's a player who can bet in and function just fine in that system.
So here's my prediction. James Maddison will be worth 15 goals in the Premier League for Leicester City next season.
So do you mean, when you say that, just to clarify, do you mean he'll score
goals
15?
Goals plus assists.
Okay.
Goals plus assists, the total will be 15 from James Maddison. To give you something to lean on, in the Championship last season, over 44 games, he scored 14 goals. That's quite a return from an attacking midfielder in the Championship. Premier League is obviously harder, but I'm imagining a mix of James Maddison, top of the box, drop the shoulder one way, go the other way, open some space, bit of separation, bend it in the top corner. James Maddison goals. James Maddison through balls for Jamie Vardy to run onto. So a mix of goals and assist from James Maddison, double D. He'll be worth a total of 15. I also want to say I leaned a little bit on the Stats Bomb Leicester City preview by Mohamed, who basically suggested that the numbers the numbers sort of say Maddison is worth about 15 goals a season.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So Maddison with 15 goals, if you include goals and assists.
And aside from his goal-scoring endeavors, one of the reasons why, as I understand it, he was so important to get a signature was so important, basically, is because Leicester had a really difficult time last season because they went defensive and tried to play on the counter. They kind of fell into that same thing as Huddersfield of being too defensive, and then you only have Jamie Vardy, and it's very difficult to break through.
Yeah.
From what I understand, the signing of James Maddison was basically an intentional effort to have that player who can link the counterattack, and it isn't just hoofing it long to Vardy and hoping he makes something happen. It's more that Maddison linking play and creating opportunities.
Well, here's what I read and saw. It's kind of interesting. So Leicester did play more defensive under Claude Puel than under Ranieri. And then they would hope to break. But when they did have the ball, they tried a more possession-based type thing, right? They tried to move the ball around and open things up, which is the opposite to the Ranieri days, right? Where like Albrighton and Mahrez would just be firing through balls and crosses in. Even when they were low percentage, they would just keep firing balls in front of Jamie Vardy and hoping that it worked. Now they're trying to hold on to the ball. They're trying to craft a chance. They didn't really have the personnel to do it last season. Like maybe Mahrez, but he's gone. I think James Maddison could be the key to unlocking all of that potential.
Yep. Strangely, with all that said, the issue for them wasn't goals. It was goals conceded. They conceded 60, I believe, which was...
more than some relegated teams.
Yeah, more than... I have it in my notes. You tried to beat me to it. But more than Swansea or West Brom. Not great. So it does feel like they've solidified. Johnny Evans coming in. Harry Maguire obviously already there. But it just feels
like... that's the worry, right? If Maguire leaves, we're suddenly in trouble again.
I have a hard time believing he leaves. But we can talk about that when we get to, say, Manchester United. But it feels like that centre-back pair is much stronger. It's not Wes Morgan trying to keep up pace, which wouldn't have worked. As you said, Danny Simpson.
Wes Morgan saying, I'm still young.
Pereira feels like a massive upgrade there. So it all feels like it should click, and this should be a strong season from Leicester. And it may well be, but we'll get to it later on, or at least I'll get to it later on. I still have my doubts about Claude Puel.
Okay. Final thing on Leicester. I like their midfield. You know, I'm a big fan of Wilfred Ndidi.
Yep.
I think he wins a lot of tackles, covers a lot of ground. Also, is able to get forward a little bit. I've just said I'm a fan of James Maddison. So that's like a 6/8 and almost definitely a 10. And then the other piece of the puzzle is it Andre Silva or Adrian Silva? I always forget.
I think it's Adrian Silva.
Adrian Silva, the midfielder one, who isn't the striker for Milan. Every time I see clips of him, I think, wow, this is a player. This guy's got some moves. This guy can connect passes. Every Leicester fan I talk to is not impressed because I think he's had some poor performances. But I think there's a good player in there. So there's a chance that the Ndidi, Silva, Maddison midfield trio could actually work. Fingers crossed. We'll find out on Friday when Leicester play Manchester United in the opening game of the Premier League season.
We will be watching that. We'll also be watching to see who ends up making Leicester's Premier League squad because by all accounts they have too many senior players, quote unquote. Ooh. So, for example, there's speculation that Islam Slimani, another Algerian attacker, may not be in there, may be looking for a loan or a transfer permanently.
Oh, so they'll be making some moves over the next 48 hours or so.
Well,
right?
I think they can continue to sell. So as long as they decide they don't need him, then I think they could sell him abroad.
I see.
But maybe they'll try to get that done if for no other reason than to have a little bit more money to spend. That said, final thing for me, with all of the names we've listed, they still have a negative net spend this window of about negative £6 million because of Riyad Mahrez and Ahmed Musa, who was sold to Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia for £15 million.
I like Ahmed Musa.
Yeah, well, so too do the Saudis.
One Nigerian player we didn't mention, Iheanacho.
Oh, there's two then.
Iheanacho, yeah. So essentially he'll, I think, be the backup slash might lighten the load on Jamie Vardy, or they might sometimes go just straight two up front, and maybe someone like James Maddison misses out or has to play wide. That's a possibility. But I read again on StatsBomb. I read a thing that everybody who's into stats, Iheanacho's numbers are amazing, but always in limited time. And everybody apparently in the stats world is itching to see what Iheanacho does with 90 minutes plus 90 minutes plus 90 minutes plus 90 minutes, but they're still waiting. He's not getting it.
All right, well, we'll see. There's a new season to come.
Worth keeping an eye on.
That's your Nigerian. My Nigerian is Wilfred Ndidi, and I just want to say that I love him.
I love him too. We're going to have a contest for him.
I love him more.
Who loves Ndidi the most?
You went Iheanacho, I went Ndidi, so there you go.
Should we go to Liverpool?
Let's do it.
Liverpool, okay.
That is the correct way to say Liverpool for this season.
It is, right? What's new at Liverpool, Taylor Rockwell?
Many things. We have 4, I'm going to say, major signings.
I've called them Klopp-specific upgrades or Kloppgrades.
Kloppgrades. All right, we'll talk about that in a second, because I'm a little frustrated by how much praise he's getting for going out and signing players.
Well, you're about to get some more from me.
All right. Alisson would be the biggest one. Went out, kind of solved the goalkeeper issue, it would seem. He had Karius. He still has Mignolet. They're both still there, but it seems very likely that it will be Alisson, the former Roma goalkeeper, signed for £56.3 million.
The important thing for me with Alisson, I don't know much about his actual goalkeeping style. I haven't seen him like in loads of one-on-one situations. I haven't seen him coming for crosses much. I do know that he's much better with his feet than Mignolet or Karius. I know that similar to Ederson, the Man City keeper, the other Brazilian keeper in the World Cup squad, he will be clipping passes like from his own area, like out to the left wing, straight onto the foot of like Andy Robertson, or straight to the feet of Mohamed Salah on the right.
And that's the key thing.
It's going to be massive for Liverpool.
Yeah, because if you're wondering, so one thing, first of all, is just that if you're more confident playing with your feet, then it means you can play the ball faster. So if you get it, you see that open player, you can play it on the ground as like a second or two faster. That makes a difference. But to your point, the other element would be that if it's very obvious that you're trying to build out of the back, if you're Liverpool, then opposition attacks can move forward and try to put pressure on those players to make you have to go long. But Alisson's like strength is, as you said, that chipped ball, diagonal. So if you've got that pressure on, you can bypass it with just a chip ball out to the channel. Suddenly you've removed 3 and 4 attacking players, and now you're away. And
when you're someone who's not so confident with their feet, like say Willy Caballero, it can go horribly wrong. When you're super confident, it's the start of an attack. For your team, not the other team.
My one question about Alisson remains, he had A. Becker on the back of his jersey at the World Cup.
He did.
When do we stop calling him Alisson?
I don't know. Maybe.
Why isn't he Becker?
I don't know that either. That's interesting, right? We'll have to see what happens. I think we'll leave it up to him, how he introduces himself in the media.
Little known fact about Alisson, by the way, is the illegitimate son of Boris Becker and Becker from Ted Danson's TV show.
That is not true, because one's a real tennis player and one's fictional.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You figured out my lie.
I did.
Well played.
I saw straight through it. Okay, who else have Liverpool signed? I know the answers, but I'm excited to talk about them.
I've started big. I started big. I'll go in terms of fee small. Xherdan Shaqiri.
Yes.
Which is
13 million or so, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of been. I love how it's been covered as sort of like he's intermittent, he could be problematic, but also it's 13 million for Xherdan Shaqiri. Just do it.
It's just spare change. Right? It's worth a gamble on someone with all that talent to see if he can plug some gaps in the Liverpool team. I think that's fair.
That's the key thing. And the way I saw it written was, or like one of the best examples I saw was when Mohamed Salah went out of the Champions League final, Klopp had like a returning from injury Adam Lallana on the bench. It was sort of like, well, that's about it. So now you've got Shaqiri who can start, who can spell some of these outfield players who will probably need a break. He can start himself. He can come on as a sub. He's there as a replacement if somebody gets injured. So for all those reasons, I think that might be one of their best bits of business in the long run.
I also saw a thing today. I didn't see this happen myself. I just read it, that in a preseason friendly recently, Shaqiri played as one of the midfield 3.
Oh boy.
Not the front 3, which means that Klopp is thinking maybe he can do more than one job, or maybe he was just testing the water to see if Shaqiri could be used in central midfield.
Yeah, and maybe this is ignorant, but it's complete speculation on my part, so it probably is ignorant. But it
let's do it.
A lot of the criticism for Shaqiri has been in relation to Stoke and his like quote-unquote intermittent performances. And I do just...
But is that a Stoke problem or a Shaqiri problem?
Yeah, that's the question, right? Because he came from Inter Milan, I believe, moved to Stoke Alona, such as they were. But then they started to struggle and slip and change managers and got different personnel. And I just sort of feel like maybe he was that huge fish in a small pond. And it was sort of like, look, I'm going to do what I want. I'll kind of take people on if I feel like it. But you should be playing the ball to me. And if you don't, then what are you doing? At Liverpool, it feels like very quickly he's being thrown into a much larger pond where he will have to swim and have to like adapt to survive. And I do think this is where I do buy into the cult of Klopp, is that I think that he'll be able to get Shaqiri sort of hyper competitive and hyper focused again, and then I kind of pity defenses when he comes on in the 80th minute when defenses are tired.
I pity defenses. You sound like Mr. T. All right, so the other Kloppgrades are in central midfield.
He's got good jewelry. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to go with maybe the least exciting but maybe equally useful one first. Fabinho.
Okay.
This one went under the radar.
I really didn't know which one you were going to go with.
Do you think this one went under the radar
100%.
a little bit?
Yep.
It happened during the World Cup, and maybe he's not that flash, but I think he's very useful. So Fabinho is a tall, he's definitely over 6 feet, Brazilian, came from Monaco. I watched some good footage of him. I think he's basically going to be Jordan Henderson.
Really?
Within that, he's going to sit. He's going to hold shape, right?
Be a mediocre English central midfielder.
No. Listen, there's a midfield three, and he'll be at the base of it, right?
Yep.
Sort of like a number 6, but in the Liverpool way, right? So you hold the shape by being that central midfielder, the one who doesn't always go charging forward with the other guys, right? And you keep the ball moving. You're the guy that just keeps the ball moving. The ball comes to you. You give it to the other midfielder, or you give it wide. That I think is going to be Fabinho's job. I think he'll either replace Henderson sometimes, or they'll trade minutes, something like that. But it just means that Liverpool midfield has more depth and it has a second option for the entire Premier League season.
I also wouldn't be surprised if they want to throw some like tactical wrinkles that you see both of them start, and you have that kind of that presence in front of the back four.
We keep thinking of it as a 4-3-3, right? But Klopp does mix it up sometimes, right? He'll do the occasional bit of weirdness with his midfield and with his formation. So you could get Fabinho and Henderson when you need it. Also worth noting, Henderson, because he went to the World Cup semi-final, he asked if he could come back early to pre-season. Klopp told him, no, don't be silly.
Yep.
So there's a whole thing with the start of the season where guys like Jordan Henderson probably won't be ready to go. It's true for a lot of people that went deep in the World Cup, right? But as an example, you now have a ready-made replacement in Fabinho. Fabinho didn't go to the World Cup, right? So he's ready to start the season with Liverpool in that spot.
There you go.
Yeah.
The other central midfielder we should probably talk about in terms of good business is Naby Keita.
Yes.
23-year-old central midfielder from RB Leipzig, 52-point-something million pounds.
Okay, I'm going to get straight to my prediction
Let's
then.
do it.
Here's my prediction for Liverpool in 2018-19. Naby Keita will be player of the season.
For Liverpool or in the entire Premier League?
For Liverpool.
Okay.
Maybe it'll be fans player of the season, maybe it'll be players player of the season, maybe it'll be the Liverpool press player of the season. Someone is going to vote for Naby Keita as player of the season.
It's like Daryl's going to create a website called like the Liverpool Press Association Player of the Season Award.
I think you think I care more about winning prediction points than I do.
You think that I want you to think that you do. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
So here's why this, for me, is the ultimate Kloppgrade. I've watched a good bit of Naby Keita at RB Leipzig. He is perfect for Liverpool's style.
Yep.
He is perfect for what Jurgen Klopp does. He brings high energy. He brings like a nice aggressive defensive pressure. He'll chase people down. But when he gets the ball, it's almost like he switches into a creative midfielder. It's like he's two midfielders in one. Yep. Once he gets the ball, he can genuinely dribble past people as if he was a playmaker. He can shoot. He can pick out passes. Naby Keita is going to be end-to-end all over the place, contributing to Liverpool's gegenpress, regular press, and regular attacks.
Yep.
And for that reason, I think as well as being very effective, he's also going to catch the eye.
Yep.
Right? You're going to notice him, and that's why he's going to be player of the season, because he's going to catch the eye.
I agree wholeheartedly, because in some of the preseason games I watched, or like the extended highlights of the preseason games, he kept being like, oh, that guy for me. I was like, oh, it's him again? He's on the ball again? It's that guy again? Like, what? Like, it's just seeing him pop up all over the place.
Twins? There's definitely two of them, right?
It felt like that, because he pops up all over the place and keeps attacks going, or breaks up counterattacks, or maintains possession, or plays a really smart ball, or gets a shot off himself. He's just so varied in what he can do.
Yep.
I think you're absolutely right. He's going to have a major season for Liverpool.
I'm also going to enjoy him as a sort of litmus test for yellow cards. So, have you heard the thing that he picked up a lot of yellow cards?
I have not,
a couple
but now
of reds,
I have.
I think, last season for RB Leipzig. Like maybe he was just a little late to a couple of tackles. He may have to rein it in a bit for the way that Klopp likes to press, because it's a lot of like get in the guy's face but don't knock him over is a lot of the gegenpressing.
The worst thing you can do in Klopp's system is get overly aggressive and concede a foul, or get overly aggressive and miss the tackles.
But I'm going to make the optimistic but maybe sensible assumption that basically Keita does that because that was part of the Leipzig system, and he's very capable of just dialing it down a notch in the Klopp system. But I'll be interested to see, does he get the same amount of yellow cards in England as he did in Germany? It'd be like a nice test of refereeing standards.
You add to that Virgil van Dijk signed in January.
Yes, a full season of Van Dijk. Don't underestimate it.
And you're at about £250 million spent by Liverpool, and that's not a criticism at all, because that's what it takes. I think, to go back to what I was saying earlier, my frustration has just been that I've seen some, I would say, Liverpool supporting journalists and bloggers talking about how this is the genius of Klopp, that he recognized the shortcomings and made the signings he needed to make. It's just like, that's what you do in the Premier League.
But how often did managers not do that? Do you remember, like, how many years did we say Arsene Wenger needs a new defensive midfielder, and then he just didn't get one?
Yeah, and I think that was stupid. I don't think doing it makes you particularly like a genius. I think it's a very common sense approach to management, and I think that's what it takes. I genuinely think that it's Liverpool fans for so long having not spent money and being desperate to spend money, and sort of it became a rallying cry of like, well, we're doing it this way, we're doing it the right way. Then suddenly when you spend money, it's a little bit like the Red Sox becoming the Red Sox and winning the World Series, and you kind of have to deal with that. But all that is to say, from my opinion, who cares? Like, it's not your money if you're a Liverpool fan.
Oh, I see.
Be happy that they're spending that money. Be happy that you have, I would say, the second best team in the Premier League.
I would also say, I'll touch on that in a second.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say spending the money to reinforce a system and working towards a thing that you want to do. And I think the reason that Liverpool are genuine title contenders this year is that Jurgen Klopp has taken a thing that did well last year, right, top 4, and made it even better. Definitely on paper it's stronger, right? They've
100%.
lost Emre Can. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's gone, but apart from that...
Gone in terms of still injured,
yes.
Probably out the whole season.
Yeah, but apart from that, Liverpool's definitely a stronger team last year than this year. And all the players that were there already are more immersed in the whole Klopp style, which we'll have to talk about in a second. I think it might be a Liverpool-Man City title challenge.
We can talk about that in a sec, because I want to say it is the beauty of Jurgen Klopp that talking about that, like the way they've improved. That last season, at the start of last season...
Lovren's one of the best defenders in the world.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that we went from like Dejan Lovren being this player who was like, they got to strengthen, to suddenly, he's a World Cup finalist. Like, that man can run a defense.
Yep.
Him and Virgil van Dijk, difficult to get by. So with all that said, my prediction is that Liverpool will finish the season with the most points they've ever earned in the Premier League era, but still not win the league.
Oh.
That's my prediction.
Is it too obvious for me to be saying Man City, Liverpool as title challengers? I think I keep reading it everywhere, but I'm also
it is, but it's the right take.
It feels right? Unless
is.
There's some big surprise. Like maybe Emery gets it really right at Arsenal, or Maurizio Sarri hits the ground running.
It's possible, but
those are 2 new managers, right? And this is 2 managers who've been in place, who've got their thing down.
That's the thing. That's what I said yesterday, and I'll say it again. I think the teams that got their business done, that got everything settled and know what they're trying to do, are going to hit the ground running, and I think a lot of other teams, Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea, are going to be figuring it out as they go. So
Spurs maybe?
Spurs are my number 3 pick.
Yeah.
I think they finished 3rd this season because they're settled. Now they may make a signing tomorrow, today if you're listening to this on Thursday.
Too settled.
We shall see. We shall see. But I think maybe it's too obvious to say that these teams are 1 and 2, but there's a reason why we keep saying these teams are 1 and 2.
All right, before we move on, I just realised we always explain the style of play. We haven't done it for Liverpool.
We haven't.
I know most people know, but I think if you're a new listener or a new viewer of the Premier League, it's worth quickly explaining what it is that Liverpool do under Jurgen Klopp. Here's how I want to lay it out. You'll hear gegenpress a lot, right? Gegenpress is definitely a thing. It's definitely associated with Klopp. What it basically means is when you lose the ball, you try and win it back as quickly as possible, right? But that's not all that Liverpool do.
Okay.
The other thing they do is a regular press, as in if the opposition is just, calmly bringing the ball out of the back. What I've been looking at again at their press, looking at some footage, it's all about Roberto Firmino. Firmino sets the direction of the pressure, and you'll see him, the guy with the ball, the centre-back with the ball, you'll see Firmino approach him, send him the way he wants to send him. But the way he wants to send him, there's a Liverpool teammate ready to close that down. That press is really, really effective, and I feel like it gets better every year for Liverpool. Yeah. So watch out.
All right. And my final thing I wanted to add to Liverpool is just that I emphasize the Premier League era because they did get 92 points in 1988. I don't think they're going to do that, but 2008-2009, they got 86 points when they came second to Manchester United. Yep. So I think they're going to get as many, but I'd say more than that, but maybe still not win.
Okay. I just realised we've done a whole Liverpool preview. We haven't really talked about the front 3 of Firmino, Sadio Mane, Mohamed Salah.
Yep.
I think you can basically expect the same thing from them this season as last year. Like, I know they were like crazy numbers that they put up last year. I think that trio just works. I think having Shaqiri and maybe Dominic Solanke coming off the bench helps alleviate the pressure on them a little bit sometimes.
Sturridge is back and apparently looks fit.
Really?
Apparently.
Fit to go out on loan again.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Or get injured.
I fully expect them to just do the same as last year and be an absolute menace to everybody they come up against.
And I think a big one worth noting there is, I believe it's Firmino and Salah just signed contract extensions, and Sadio Mane expected to follow suit, which means that you...
So no rumours, right?
No
transfer rumours.
You don't have those transfer rumours. You don't have people coming in and speculating, they're going to go, and it kind of distracts from preseason preparations.
Oh, I'm pumped to watch Liverpool this year. All right, we still have Man City, Man United and Newcastle to talk about, but we also have The Athletic to talk about. The Athletic is back as a Total Soccer Show sponsor.
It is indeed.
If you've seen online The Athletic hoovering up all the best soccer writers, that is really happening. I feel like a lot of people are really excited. Some people are frustrated maybe that The Athletic are getting all the best soccer writers. This just means they're giving the best soccer writers a platform, paying them good money.
Yeah.
And it means that it is now, I'm really confident to say, it's the best place to read soccer coverage in the United States.
Yeah. No argument here, and I think that's a credit to George and Brooks, who are doing a great job
Yes,
running it.
they
But I think
certainly
it's also, they're as you said, they're hoovering up, they're finding the talent who want to write, and they're giving them the platform, and I would say the remuneration to do so.
Yep. Part of that is that The Athletic is subscription-based, but once you subscribe, and it's not expensive, once you subscribe, you get ad-free, pop-up free, none of that. But nothing gets between you and the glorious content that is coming through The Athletic, especially if you read on the app. I love the app.
Do you want to talk about some of the content then?
Yeah, let me think of an example. I recently read the Joseph Lowery explanation of what Unai Emery's tactics have been and what he's going to do at Arsenal. Really succinctly, smartly written. Gave me a really good understanding of what Unai Emery does. You can't find that anywhere else. Really good stuff from Joseph Lowery there.
Did it make you feel like he's more or less inclined to hit the ground running?
More.
Okay.
Yeah, it made me really think he knows what he's doing, and maybe the players suit what he wants to do.
All right, I'll remember that for later. The one I very much enjoyed most recently was the transfer market mistakes top clubs are still making by Tim Wigmore.
I saw this headline. I haven't clicked it.
Yeah, I have a quick excerpt from it that
Okay.
I love. For every week further into the transfer window, clubs pay a premium of 1 to 2% in transfer fee, according to 21st Club, as selling clubs exploit their desperation. Over the duration of a 12-week window, that means that a club may pay an excess of 15 to 20% for buying a player at the end compared with at the start.
Oh, so this is like the homework thing we were talking about
Yes.
earlier. If you do it earlier, you get a better deal.
But he really does, without doing, and one thing I did enjoy, without doing like a bullet point, like here's one thing and here's one thing, he really does make a clear and concise case for specific things. It's like 3 or 4 things that Premier League clubs are doing wrong or that some are doing right to really be effective or ineffective in the transfer window.
I notice you're not telling me what those are. You're saying I've got to go subscribe to The Athletic to read it.
Well, I think I've implied one, which is waiting too long to get deals done.
Yeah.
But
All right,
there's many
sounds
more.
good. There was also one that touched us personally, sort of. Pablo Mara, who's a DC-based writer, came down to our city. Well,
Sure did.
we were out of town, right? We were on
sure
tour,
were.
World Cup Comedy Tour, for the Richmond Kickers versus Espanyol, sort of glamorous friendly here in Richmond. La Liga comes to Richmond. It was really interesting to see a reported story about the city I live in through the eyes of someone who doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah?
It was interesting because I think we're so used to City Stadium, including some of the jokes I made about City Stadium on tour.
Yeah.
So
Which
to
we won't repeat here.
See somebody else appreciate it through new eyes
Yep.
was exciting and interesting.
There's also, I won't reveal it, but there was an interesting mix-up at a local hotel with Espanyol's dietary requests. It's an Anglo-Spanish mix-up.
An Anglo-Spanish mix-up. All right, so that's a lot of conversation about The Athletic, but that's because it is such a good site. And if you would like to take advantage of the content on offer from The Athletic, you can do so with a 40% discount.
40%
40.
off. 40% off the cost of a subscription if you go to theathletic.com/TSS August. That's sort of all one word, the letters TSS, then August. We'll put the link in the show notes. I really encourage you to sign up, not just to support the Total Soccer Show, but also to get yourself access to the best soccer writing on the whole internet.
On the whole internet. I agree. And now shall we move to the Manchesters, starting with the Manchester City.
Yeah, so the merger hasn't happened yet. We're going to treat them as 2 different clubs. Manchester City, Premier League champions, Champions League quarter-finalists knocked out by Liverpool. What's new at Manchester City this year?
We already talked about him. Riyad Mahrez coming in for £61 million, and that's about it.
That's really the only signing, right? It's the only high-profile signing,
Yeah.
maybe the only signing at all so far. Guardiola was interested in another midfielder, maybe. I think he wanted Jorginho, but Chelsea got there first. Let's talk about that Mahrez signing.
Sure.
The longer I think about it, the more I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Same?
Yep.
Okay, because it seemed like at the time I thought, why do you need them? Why do you need Riyad Mahrez? You already got loads of wingers, loads of attackers. But it just makes sense. He's fits the style in terms of he's nice and dribbly. He can slide nice little through balls in. And also the thing that really set it off in my head is I read if Mahrez continues to play wide, then guys like Kevin De Bruyne, that's more chance for them to play central instead of having to play
Raheem
wide
Sterling
all the time.
especially.
Raheem Sterling, Bernardo Silva. There's a lot of guys that are actually central attacking midfielders that ended up playing on the wing at Manchester City. Riyad Mahrez can take that spot out wide and let them play central.
Yeah.
So this is just making Manchester City that little bit better for next season.
Or that little bit more versatile. It gives them another thing in the Swiss Army knife of their attack.
Yeah.
That he can throw Riyad Mahrez on.
Army knife.
Yeah, and he can move people around. Thank you for that. Did you feel good putting that one in there? Was that important that you changed the name of it? Goodness gracious. Yeah, so it just varies up the attack just a little bit. It gives you that much more of a potent attacker. It's still a lot of money to spend for Riyad Mahrez, but when it's Man City, they're probably always going to have to spend more than they would like.
There's more oil to pull out of the ground, so you can spend 61 million on Riyad Mahrez.
Catalan
Correct?
Army knife.
Here's another one that's almost like a new player, a fit Benjamin Mendy.
Yep.
So they signed him last summer, then he got a really bad injury. He was out for most of the season. Still managed to get a Premier League winner's medal and a World Cup winner's medal, despite being mostly injured. Imagine what he can do when he's fit.
Yeah.
Mendy tearing down the left wing, Shark Team. He invented the phrase Shark Team on Instagram. He even contributed while he was injured.
He did.
Imagine him on the field, Benjamin Mendy.
So it means that I would say, yeah, from top to bottom, they are a stronger team in terms of the roster depth. The issue that everybody seems to be pointing to is, can they repeat as champions? No team has repeated as champions in 10 years. I don't think it's that hard. I really don't. I really don't. When you're Man City, I think you've got Liverpool. I think that's going to be the games to watch is Man City v Liverpool, and I think it happens more than twice. I'll put it that way. We'll get to that in a sec. But I really do think that Guardiola isn't going to let this team slack off. That's been a problem in the past. They're not that team that sort of found...
A problem for Man City or a problem for previous champions?
Yes. I mean, I really do think both. I think that once you win that first title, when you're Man City, after that money comes in, that it's sort of like, we did it, we've accomplished it, and it can be really hard to keep that going. I think that's been a problem for both of the managers who won it. I believe it was, Pellegrini and Mancini, I think.
Yeah, there you go. I watched Guardiola during the Community Shield. He looked very intense. Like, there were specific things he was looking for, and I really got the feeling of he'd asked a lot of those players for the new season. So, yeah, that definitely supports what you're saying.
And I think Company said the same thing, that it's always difficult to keep that mental edge once you've won it. It feels like they'll be able to do it this time. And I really enjoyed, one of my favorite things I saw was a comment on The Guardian that was, Man City's strength is that they're one of the only teams in the Premier League that relishes when their opponent parks the bus. And it's true that if you sit back and try to defend and keep it bunkered, they will find a way through because they thrive in those moments. And that's what makes them so challenging, is that, and I think this is what gives them the edge over Liverpool for me, is that I do think that there's a few more things that can be done in the Catalan Army knife. I hate you. So to just vary it up to cause problems, to pull defenses out of position, and just to keep them always on their toes. And again, that's why I think Riyad Mahrez, the addition of Riyad Mahrez, is so important.
I also think what we're going to see is some new innovation from Pep Guardiola that neither you nor I could guess at, but it's going to happen. We'll see something happen this season with that Man City shape, or a thing he does with his midfielders or his wingers or his fullbacks. And we're like, oh, that's a new thing. Because I think he tends to add a thing every year, keep the team on their toes, keep the opposition off balance.
And I'm not saying that this is necessarily the same thing, because I agree with you, but one of my predictions is that we'll get at least one Guardiola overthink game this season, where it's just he's trying
in the Premier League?
I think so. I think we'll get that one game where he tries this insane formation that doesn't make any sense, and Brighton score 2 on them in the first 30, and then he's got to figure it out on the fly.
Those are the best games to watch.
They really are. Man
City 2-0 down after 30 minutes is glorious to watch.
My other prediction, so that's one. My other one, I don't know if it's that big of a gamble, but Manchester City and Liverpool will play each other at some point in the Champions League.
Again?
Yes, at some point. And that really could, and I'm saying that it doesn't really depend on where they get drawn. If they get drawn to the knockout round, there you go. But there's also a chance that if they're on either side of the bracket, they may well meet in the final.
So here's an interesting thing that relates to that. Liverpool famously beat Manchester City in the Champions League last year by going after them, right? They applied their own press to Man City and made it really hard for them, and they couldn't quite cope. I think the season before, Tottenham did the same thing to Manchester City. It seems to me, what you just said, that when they relish it when teams sit back and bunker, and because they can break them down. We talked about the Premier League as being the everybody's pressing league because there's so many more pressing teams this year than last year. I hope that's what happens. I hope teams go at Manchester City, and in the end we'll get these nice open affairs that are really entertaining to watch. Because they're going to beat you anyway if you sit back. Why not just roll the dice and go at them?
So there you go. So maybe they'll have to deal with teams going at them. The only other thing I could see causing a big problem for them, I think you alluded to it earlier with Jorginho, is Fernandinho is kind of their only kind of holding defensive midfielder.
33 years old.
He's 33 years old. He's going to get tired. There's going to be more games. Is he able to play a whole season? Do they have to adjust and change the formation if he can't play? Do they try other people in that spot and hope it works? Or in the remaining 24 hours, do they go out and try to sign one more player?
Here's my prediction.
Yeah.
Manchester City will sign a new holding midfielder by either Thursday at 5 p.m. or January. It's very clear that that's what Guardiola wants to do. I mean, this isn't even a brave prediction.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's just a guarantee.
Yeah, but it's going to happen at some point. Right? His other options are Ilkay Gundogan, who I don't think he fully trusts.
Yeah.
Or at least I don't fully trust him not to be injured.
Which is strange because that's one of the players that... I feel like he kind of hand-selected or told Man City, this is a guy I want.
But then a lot of times I've seen Gundogan play for Man City towards the end of last year, he would be in a more advanced position, right?
Yep.
So he'd never seemed to actually trust him to take over the Fernandinho role. Fabian Delph has been there a couple of times, but that's not quite of the same passing and moving quality. Yaya Toure has gone. He's moved on. So it seems like there is...
He has moved. I don't know if he's moved on.
Oh, okay. He's no longer employed.
There you
go. So we mentioned earlier that Guardiola was after Jorginho, who would have been a good fit. I can see him as a Fernandinho type. So I think Guardiola is still in the market. Did you hear the John Stones quote the other day?
That he might be moved forward?
That he might be moved forward to defensive midfield. I can't tell if that was a challenge to John Stones or a challenge to the board to go and get me another defensive midfielder.
Things can be two things.
But I think I'd like to see it because it kind of makes sense, right? You see John Stones likes to pass and move out of the back, so why not shift him a little farther forward?
Because it's John Stones and you need him in the back?
Oh, that's true. We've got
that is my answer.
So Man City have what? Vincent Kompany. They have Otamendi.
Vincent Kompany known to be fully fit for entire seasons.
Aymeric Laporte. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I'd like to see Stones playing.
I like that you started off with that sort of cadence of like they've got da 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 and da 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 and da 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 da, and then that listing slowed down dramatically.
Well, maybe Stones is just used as an occasional defensive midfielder. I'm up for positional experiments. So
Eric Palmer Brown recalled. There we go.
That would do it. I would love to see that.
All right.
Okay, we want to talk a little bit about the style of play of Manchester City. I think, like Liverpool, most people know what it is, but let's give a quick summary just in case people don't.
Good.
Okay,
it is good.
It is a good style of play. I would call it dominance.
Yep.
Every game, they are never saying, all right, you're going to do your thing and we'll try and counter it. It's always, we're doing our thing, best of luck dealing with it.
Yep.
The formation is either, I'd call it a 4-1-4-1, but he gets very attacking, or a 3-1-4-2. So it's basically back three or back four. Back three is normally two strikers, right? Jesus and Aguero. When it's the one striker, it's either Jesus or Aguero.
Did you say back three is usually their two strikers?
Yeah, no. When there's a back three,
Gotcha.
3-1-4-2.
Gotcha.
They end up with two centre forwards.
I was very confused. I was like, that's very revolutionary of him.
You with me now, though?
Yes.
Right? He does move positions around, but not quite Jesus and Aguero in the back. When it's 4-1-4, when it's Jesus versus Aguero, that's always an interesting who's going to start type matchup.
Yep.
And what they do is, when they got the ball, they spread the field. You always see, it'll be like Mahrez way on the right touchline and probably Leroy Sané way on the left touchline. And you'll see the fullbacks, like say Mendy and Walker, will both overlap and underlap and just cause absolute chaos for the opposition. It's horrible to look at when you're a defending team.
Yes. It's also just insane how good this team is because have we even said the name David Silva yet? Because I don't think we have.
No, he's just
Goodness gracious.
David Silva's like an extra Kevin De Bruyne. So the other thing to look out for Man City, if you're a newbie to the Premier League, Kevin De Bruyne counter-attacks. Kevin De Bruyne, anytime Man City on the counter-attack, you saw it at the World Cup, he will slip through balls that no one else can see, but will put strikers in behind.
You see a little pink-faced blur go flying by, that's Kevin De Bruyne on the counter.
The other thing is when the opposition has the ball, I really like the way Man City press. It's like it's almost a man-to-man press, but then they squeeze in on you as well until you're absolutely trapped and there's nowhere to go.
Yep.
You see teams panic. I'd say they make teams panic more than Liverpool because of the way they do it. Because with Liverpool, it's over quicker. With Man City, it's more like a slow squeeze, like a boa constrictor around your neck.
I agree to some extent, except that I would have a hard time characterizing it as slow. Because for me, it's more like it's always vaguely reminiscent of birds flocking, where it's sort of like they all seem like they're doing their... Oh, no, they're all together and doing something, and they are swarming.
It's very coordinated.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like it is at first, and then you watch it again from a different angle, and you see like, oh no, they all moved at the exact same time to fill the exact same space to cause the exact same problem.
Manchester City, Premier League champions.
So,
and again, Man City, Liverpool, we think is the title race, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And Man United in that title race?
No.
Well, that's the next team we're going to talk about.
All right.
Manchester United. Taylor Rockwell.
Yeah.
You're a Manchester United fan, right?
I am.
We should say that for full disclosure. What's new at Manchester United this summer?
Not a whole lot. Not as much as Jose Mourinho would like. Frej has come in from Shakhtar Donetsk. Yes, for a number ranging from 45 million to 70 million, depending on which source you want to go with. I think it's closer to 50 or 60 million. He's come in. He's expected to be a like central / maybe holding midfielder. I don't quite know where he will fit. Not necessarily because he doesn't fit the system, but just it does feel like this is a United team that keeps expanding in size without necessarily improving in quality on the field.
Interesting.
Also, the other signing would be Diego Dalot, who was expected to be the starting right back, or at least challenged for the starting right back spot. I believe is nursing an injury, so it may still be Antonio Valencia.
Isn't he injured as well?
Still hurt.
So who starts at right back on Friday against Leicester City?
Matteo Darmian, who is still there. No, I think it will probably be Dalot or Antonio Valencia, if I had to guess.
One of them will be convinced that they're fit.
Yep, but then on the other side, you've got Ashley Young returning from the World Cup, so he hasn't had much time with the squad, and Luke Shaw, who is an enigma.
So I'm going to include him as a new player almost, because I still think Luke Shaw has all kinds of talent as a left back. I think he's had a rough couple of years. I still think there's a Luke Shaw moment coming.
I mean, yeah. I really think he was poised to kind of continue his stock rising under Van Gaal. Then he had that leg break and he missed most of the season, and it feels like he's never really recovered from that. He's never really gotten into Jose Mourinho's good graces. If anything, he's been sort of the whipping boy for Jose Mourinho at times, but it does feel like he's fitter and he's more eager than he has been in seasons past. We'll see if that ends up being the case or if he's even allowed to make the case.
So you also, I think you alluded to, Jose Mourinho has been doing some complaining in pre-season.
Yes.
I don't know if that's new or not, but it's definitely a thing that's happening. Can you give us a quick recap of what Jose Mourinho has been saying?
No. A quick recap of what he's been saying? No, I can't. I mean, I don't want to be too pessimistic, but I'll say it's basically from the start. Before they even left for their preseason tour of the United States, he said, it's been a bad preseason. I'm not taking the players I want. I don't have the players fit the way I want them to. This is basically a distraction. He continued to say that during their tour. He famously said, I don't know why Americans would pay to see this.
Yeah.
This isn't my first team.
I'm kind of with him on
Most
that one.
of these people aren't going to be in this starting lineup, or in the squad, let alone in the starting lineup, so it's not really serving any purpose. But then he got mad at individual players, as he's wont to do. For example, Anthony Martial leaving for the birth of his, I think, second child, maybe his first, I'm not sure, but I think is going to face a club fine because I don't think he has yet returned, or at least returned very late to training.
Can we stop on Anthony Martial for a second? So most people know he's a very talented player, right?
Yep.
He can play striker, he can play left wing. He was 50-something million pounds back when that was a lot of money.
I think he can play left wing is the emphasis I'm putting on that,
It does seem like there's a deliberate thing from Mourinho to almost freeze him out and try and move him on and get rid of him.
Yeah.
Am I reading that right?
I think you are, and I think you especially are because I read the Stats Bomb preview of Man United, to go back to that one, and their point...
I didn't read this one.
One of my favorite points they made, because it crystallized a thing that I wasn't able to explain myself, is that when it was Martial and Rashford on either side of the wings, that they basically functioned as support strikers.
I did read this one.
They would often come inside and basically get bodies in the box. There'd be more touches in the box. They facilitated the attack that way.
So it's almost like they don't mind playing wide because they know they're going to play inside right and inside left, to use the very old-fashioned terminology.
But once you have Alexis Sanchez come, he's just an out-and-out winger, and he's not going to do that same thing. He's going to run a lot, he's going to work very hard, but it's a different approach, and it means the other two have to adjust their game plan.
I actually wasn't fully convinced by that, because I think of Alexis Sanchez as someone who likes to play as a more central attacker as well. He likes to come inside as well, right?
He does, but I don't think he likes to stay there. I think it's more so he's happy to get that ball, break down the wing, and dribble inside, or maybe come inside to support the striker, but I think more often than not, you see him really rushing that ball down the wing, more so than drifting central and receiving the ball there, or at least that's what it's been for United in the past season, or at least past 6 months. So it feels like maybe that adjustment, it was kind of Anthony Martial is going to be a striker. Oh, never mind, he's going to be a winger, but he's going to be now he's a winger. Now he's this. And I think...
He just doesn't quite fit anywhere.
He doesn't quite fit anywhere, and I think he hasn't been allowed to fit anywhere or been given the time and the confidence and the backing to be able to fit.
My guess as well is some players deal with that better than others, and if you don't deal with it well under Jose Mourinho, he's someone who strikes me as being not very kind to someone who's asking for minutes and not getting them. I think he would prefer to just be rid of you than to deal with you knocking on his door asking, can I play some more minutes?
I don't disagree. The thing that confuses me the most is I have heard, I think we talked about this on the air, I've heard from many people that if you speak one-on-one with Jose Mourinho and you're not a journalist, he is the most charming person you will meet. But if you're a journalist, he turns that sourpuss on, and he is going to be grouchy and not fun. And there's a part of me that maybe has bought so much into the Mourinho mind games that I really wouldn't put it past him for purposes of the analogy, for me to go to you and be like, hey, Daryl, I'm going to badmouth you to the press. I don't really mean it, but I just want to distract them. And you'd be like, okay, and then here we go. Like, I wouldn't put that past him because he so publicly just destroys players.
I wouldn't either, but what's he distracting us from?
That's the question, is that it's the preseason.
Yeah.
You have nothing to distract against.
There's no actual scandal that he wants you to look away from, right? There's only the preseason.
If I wanted to go like silver lining, trying to find a piece of optimism, what I would say is that no one is talking about Manchester United as a title challenger. They were last season because it was Mourinho's second season. He always wins in the second season, so this is the year. And maybe there's the Mourinho mind game of, I want to keep as much pressure off us as possible. I want us to look dysfunctional and disorganized and like nobody wants to play here, nobody wants to be together. So when we come out and destroy teams, it's a complete shock and nobody sees us coming. That's the best possible spin, and in my opinion, the least likely possible spin.
So, okay, let's apply that idea to the Paul Pogba situation.
Sure.
So Paul Pogba, maybe Manchester United's most famous player, maybe their best player, just come back from a really good World Cup where he was not the star of the show for France, but like a really functional, effective piece of France's midfield. Mourinho said some not nice things about Pogba, right? He's essentially suggested that Pogba plays better for France because he's more focused, because he's putting more effort in, because he's up for every game, and suggesting that he needs to do the same for Manchester United. Then in response, we've seen possible bids for Paul Pogba from Barcelona. Like, is he creating a situation where Paul Pogba might be leaving, or is this one of those weird mind game things?
I think it's a weird mind game thing. All right, I'm aware, and I'm happy for you to say, I think you're reaching here. I've thought a lot about this, about why Mourinho would say the things he said about Pogba, and what I've come to is that I think he is jealous. And not of Paul Pogba.
Wait. Jose Mourinho is jealous of Paul Pogba?
No. I think the frustration is, because I've experienced this a little bit, is now everybody is Didier Deschamps is this amazing manager who got the best out of this French team. Up until they won the final, it was Didier Deschamps is completely mismanaging this team. Paul Pogba's playing defense. Like, what are you doing with this incredibly brilliant attacking player? You win the World Cup. That really was the narrative, lest we forget. It was, why aren't you unleashing Paul Pogba? Why aren't you getting him into the attack? You and I had to make that argument of like, no, he's performing a very important role. And only when
he's essentially a counter-attack launcher in many ways for France,
but
right?
like, there was even, he was sitting back. He was covering for Pavard when Pavard would go bombing forward. Like, he was functionally a right back at times. And I think if you're Jose Mourinho, that suddenly when France win the World Cup, Deschamps is this amazing manager and he was able to get the best out of Pogba. Was he? Or was he able to get the defensive best out of Pogba? And I have a feeling, this is complete speculation, completely me reading way too much into it, but I have a feeling that if you're Jose Mourinho, it's like, but if I do that, you guys yell at me. If I try to make Pogba play defense, I'm shackling this amazing, incredibly talented player.
We did that very same conversation on this podcast.
Yeah.
We accused him of that.
Exactly. And so that's, I really do think that might be where some of it comes from, is that for France, Pogba is more than happy to do this, and you don't hear the headlines because they've won the World Cup. But if I do it, it's all this, he doesn't know how to use Pogba, Barcelona want Pogba, he should go to Barcelona, he should go to Madrid. I think that's part of where Mourinho gets mad.
Interesting.
So that's, again, I may be totally wrong. I don't think that's Homerism, but it's up to you to say.
Okay, I want to move us on and talk about something else that
you want to talk about Pogba for 45 more minutes?
Is new and I think is important at Manchester United. Rui Faria, Mourinho's long-time assistant coach, 17 years they've been together across various clubs, has essentially retired, right? No longer working with Mourinho. And instead of replacing him directly, Mourinho has brought in some combination of Michael Carrick, former player, now assistant coach, and Kieran McKenna, who is the U18 coach for Manchester United. I think he won the title with the U18s last year, who's apparently very inventive and has all these weird training sessions that everybody's into. I genuinely think that a change like that doesn't get headlines, but anything that freshens up practice and brings new things, brings new excitement, can have a massive impact on a team. I think that's a thing Man United fans should be optimistic about.
I 100% agree. We've talked about this previously, but if you're new to like Premier League soccer from the World Cup, or if you're just new to our coverage of Manchester United, which is me rambling about Manchester United and Daryl desperately trying to rein me in, this is
I always get us just back on track in time.
Yeah, maybe. Not enough for me.
Don't take that as a challenge.
Too late. This is a thing that Ferguson did, right? He would change out that second team manager or the first team coach, whatever it is.
Brian Kidd, Steve McLaren,
Carlos Queiroz, Mike Phelan.
Yeah.
I mean, Rene Mullenstein. Yeah. It was a way he kept things fresh, and I think it was a key part of how he was able to keep his team evolving. Yep. So I'm with you on that. The other interesting thing is Michael Carrick for me, and it's because was it the Graham Hunter interview where Michael Carrick talked about what was like, did they call it the box? Is that what it was?
It's essentially the 5v2 or the rondo, or if you're very new to soccer, the keep away, where two people in the middle, guys on the outside pass the ball and keep it away from the guys in the middle.
But when he first joined the club, it was like there were different tiers, right? And it was like the best tier, the people who took it the most seriously, that was the one you wanted to be in. But you
Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, David Beckham, those guys were in the top box.
You had to prove that you belonged, though, right?
Yep.
And I found myself thinking about that today, and I feel like Michael Carrick keeps that tradition going because he internalized that. And it is one of the reasons why I'm happy he's still there, is because I feel like he would be the one to, if people are slacking off doing the rondo, kind of channel that inner Roy Keane and let him know that's not what you do.
That's interesting. Yeah, I thought the same thing. So I'm hoping that is what's happening at Manchester United practice now.
I feel like I'm slowly talking myself back into feeling slightly optimistic about this.
Well, here's the thing. Man United finished second last year. They haven't lost any major players. They've added a right back, which I would argue they needed in Dallas. And I think Fred, the Brazilian midfielder, I think is a really good pickup.
I agree.
Did you watch some footage? I went and watched some footage. Little guy, 5'7", but wide, right? And he has the unique skill, not unique, but the rare skill to tackle by stepping between you and the ball.
Yeah.
I love when players do this because I think it looks easy. It looks like you've just been, like, you step between the guy with the ball and take it off them. That sounds simple. You try doing that, it's impossible. But he manages to do that, just insert himself, then dribble away with the ball. After he does, this guy has a left foot. He can thread passes. He can shoot from distance. He can hit diagonal balls with that left foot. I think he's going to be a really good pickup for Manchester United. Here's my prediction.
He's a Brazilian who came from Shakhtar, so I don't disagree.
Yeah,
that's how it works.
So who else came from Shakhtar? Fernandinho, Willian, a lot of guys who have absolutely thrived in the Premier League, right? Fred will get 5 assists directly to Romelu Lukaku in the Premier League.
Ooh, okay.
He will assist on 5 Romelu Lukaku goals. Because I love the way Lukaku hangs on the shoulder. This is the Belgian centre-forward that you'd have seen at the World Cup. Hangs on the shoulder of opposition defenders, but then makes little runs away from them, and then he always gestures where he wants it. You know, he always does that like open palm gesture of like, put it there, or a point, and then a thumbs up if he gets it. I can see Fred sliding in perfect balls for Lukaku every time there's a gesture.
I would enjoy that.
Yeah.
I would enjoy that immensely.
So 5 Fred assists to Lukaku.
One thing I really enjoyed when thinking about Fred in a Man United shirt was, I can't remember where I heard it, maybe it was the Two Robbies podcast. They were talking about one of the things that they had heard is that he was the substitute for Casemiro for Brazil, but his injury status and his basically Chichi not being sure that Fred could go a full 90 is why he didn't start when Casemiro was suspended. Yeah. And then there was the argument that if he had started, maybe he does that defensive job that other players weren't capable of. Maybe Brazil don't have the problems they did.
Wouldn't have scored the own goal that Fernandinho scored.
There's also that.
Can we talk about the midfield a second then? So with Fred added, you've got him, Paul Pogba, Nemanja Matic, you've got Ander Herrera, probably someone else that I'm forgetting.
There's lots of other people.
Maybe Jesse Lingard plays central
Fellaini
midfield.
re-signed.
Fellaini. Who's the starting midfield against Leicester on Friday?
It's tough because you've had the abbreviated preseason and you haven't had everybody there. So I couldn't say with any particular confidence. I would be surprised if it's not Fred. I would be surprised if it's not Paul Pogba. I would have thought
Pogba was in the World Cup's final. I'm not sure when he got back from pre-season. I don't know if he's good to go. I know Matic is injured. I think there might be a shortage of midfielders.
Yeah, so you may well see, and you're absolutely right, and I think the expectations are that Pogba won't play for the reasons you've just said. With some of the limitations they have, and it being the first game of the season, I have a hard time thinking that Jose will go with Fred, and he might not even play, like Fellaini and Ander Herrera. That just doesn't seem... the only way... Actually, I don't think he'll do that, but maybe he'll have to. I was going to say the only way I would see him doing that is if he intentionally plays a bad team to show the board that he needs more players, but he can't do that anymore, so it doesn't really work.
Yeah, there's no... for January?
I mean, he would have done that in the past.
One other question. Lukaku, if he's unavailable...
Oh, that's your one other question? Because I've got more to say.
Because he played all the games you can play at the World Cup, right? Because I think he played the third, fourth... Either way, he went deep in the World Cup. He's had a short pre-season. He's probably not good to go. I worry about Manchester United because they're so Lukaku dependent. If he's not playing centre-forward, who's playing centre-forward?
Probably Rashford. Exactly.
He's not the same player, is he?
No, but I mean, I think it's also always...
And he went to the World Cup semi-final.
It's always difficult to find a person who is just happy to be a backup. Ask Anders Lindegaard how that goes. And Sergio Romero being the outlier. So I think it's difficult to get a support striker, a secondary striker, who's just going to sit on the bench knowing that they're only going to play when Lukaku is tired.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it's Mourinho having to adapt what he wants to do. And maybe that's Anthony Martial. Maybe that's having Martial with maybe Alexis Sanchez coming a little bit inside, and you have more of an attacking two there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Maybe Sanchez plays central.
I would say Anthony Martial, but I don't know where he is. The only other thing I wanted to talk about with United, and I think it's worth noting, is the most recent point of contention for Jose Mourinho is defense.
Yeah.
He
wants to sign another one, right?
Apparently. I mean, and I get why, and it goes back to what you were talking about with Johnny Evans and Phil Jones, that Phil Jones consistently last season was trying to make those Phil Jones plays, and that's why you get the Phil Jones face. If you've never seen that, just Google that. You'll see some hilarious images.
The oh no face.
Yeah, well, or just the I'm throwing my body at the ball, but it's because he's throwing his body at the ball. I don't think that's what Mourinho wants. I think he wants composed central defenders who can play with the ball at the feet but don't break shape, keep their position, cause problems. And I guess he feels like he doesn't have that yet, or he doesn't have that with enough players.
Who does he like? Does he like Eric Bailly?
He likes Eric Bailly.
That makes sense to me. Eric Bailly, I always have faith in him to win the ball.
That might be it.
He always looks... Eric Bailly to me looks unorthodox when he's got the ball at his feet, but he never messes it up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He doesn't look like he's really composed.
I mean, he messes up occasionally. He's had a few mistakes.
Has he? All right.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I think the argument is he wants a senior center back who can sort of tutor Bailly and Lindelof. Lindelof is another Mourinho signing. I mean, they have 5 center backs right now.
Lindelof is the reason where if I was the Man United board and Jose said, hey, give me 50 million for a centre back, I'd be like, well, last time we did that, look what happened.
And strangely, I think the way Mourinho works, and I think the way a lot of clubs work nowadays is, you gave me that money and I bought a player, and that player's not good enough. I need a better player and more money. And I don't love that that's the way he goes, because going back to City, like Guardiola tries with Fabian Delph as a central defensive midfielder because he has to. He doesn't scream at the board and make it a public thing. But that does seem like what Jose Mourinho is going to do to try to force through a center back. And this is my final point because I know I've gone long. But
so I figured we'd go long on Man United.
As of today, apparently Jerome Boateng straight up called Jose Mourinho to say, I do not want to come to Manchester.
Is that, what do you read into that? Is that I don't want to play for your team? I don't like the look of it? Or just I'm happy at Bayern, I'm not leaving?
Maybe this is homerism. It probably is. It feels like a thing that Jerome Boateng's agent put out because he had been sort of reportedly wishy-washy and like, well, if they really want me, maybe I'm interested. And I think that's an easy way for it to seem like, oh no, he values Bayern Munich. He wants to stay at Bayern Munich. That's an easy way to make that clear. And it doesn't benefit Jose Mourinho to come out and say, no, that conversation never happened. Then he's squabbling in the press, and that's exactly what they want.
Yep.
So whatever. I don't think Jerome Boateng is coming. I don't think Jerry Mina is because, as we said earlier, Everton.
So Toby Alderweireld?
Toby Alderweireld, I guess Tottenham want over £60 million, I think, for a 29-year-old centre back who wants to leave.
I'd pay it.
I don't know. And part of that is because of the article I mentioned before, where it's talking about how maybe we prioritize players who are too old.
TheAthletic.com/TSS August.
There we go. Thank you for that. And so it seems like what they're going to try to do is negotiate with Tottenham. Good luck with that. And maybe see if Leicester will budge on Harry Maguire.
You've got 45 hours and 45 minutes, Manchester United, at time of recording.
Yeah.
All right, final thing on Man United. Style of play. I think, weirdly, the Man United style of play is interesting because it's the one high-profile team that won't be pressing. They'll be the odd team out in the everybody pressing league. I see Man United as a team that goes defensively. They go safety first, right? It's like numbers behind the ball, then they apply pressure, right? They will apply pressure, but they'll start deep. They won't commit loads of numbers forward and risk opening themselves up to try and win the ball back high. Part of my thinking is this is the failing of Mourinho in recent years is that soccer has evolved to be very pressing-centric, and he's just never fully embraced it. So unless maybe Michael Carrick and who's the other guy's name, Kieran McKenna, unless they've done a huge convincing job on Mourinho before the season starts, Man United are going to be the odd team out in terms of how they play.
Well, the odd team out isn't necessarily the worst thing, but I think for what Mourinho, like the Cliff Notes version is United under Mourinho, not necessarily concerned with having possession, having the ball, more concerned with keeping shape, keeping position, and not letting teams doing what they want to do, and then counterattacking, and maybe reestablishing possession if it's on, but if it's not, so be it.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's necessarily a problem if you have the team buying into it. And that's famously what Mourinho does. First season, he gets them to buy in. Second season, everybody's bought in completely, and they're all working as hard as they can. They win the title. Third season, they're all burnt out. They maybe don't believe in him as much, and that's when everything falls apart. So it's 100% dependent on the players buying into Mourinho. I still don't know if they have.
I guess maybe we'll find out Friday whether the new players have or not.
Mm-hmm. But we should also note that I haven't given you my prediction yet.
Oh, sorry. All that
said,
go ahead.
My prediction is, based on everything we've said, that United will go deep in the Champions League because they have to.
Because they have to.
Unless everything is completely nuts and my silver lining theory holds and they actually are challenging for the title, I don't think Mourinho can afford a season where he doesn't get silverware, and I really don't think the FA Cup or the League Cup is going to do it. So
do you feel like this is Mourinho's last season, whether it's successful or not?
At United?
Yeah.
No. I don't.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's sacked. I wouldn't be surprised if he walked away, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he signed a renewal last year. So I also wouldn't be surprised if Ed Woodward doesn't want to pay the money or whatever, that he sticks around. But I do think he has to justify that. And if they're 16 points off the title come December, I think you're going to see him very much focusing on the Champions League and prioritizing that above all else.
Doesn't it feel like it always comes down to that, though? Like, at some point, he's like, oh, yeah, we're focusing on the Europa League, or we're doing this, or we're doing that. Like, it seems like it always comes down to a bit of desperation towards the end.
Yep.
I'd rather, as a Man United fan, if I was a Man United fan, just see a proper title challenge.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody would say that. I don't think it's possible right now. And especially I don't think it's possible when United needed to invest in other areas and have brought in three players, right? Because they brought in the third string goalkeeper as well.
Yep. Okay. Anything else on Man United? We've gone long?
No, I've gone long.
Yeah, okay.
I'll be quiet.
Final team for today.
In fact, I won't even talk about Newcastle.
Well, weirdly, there's less to say, but a lot of anger.
I have so much to say about Newcastle.
So Newcastle United, our final team for today. What's new at Newcastle United? I just wrote more turmoil.
My rage at Mike Ashley. I never really had this before. I knew he was not great.
This is the owner.
But reading more about him, it just makes me grab the sides of my chair with white knuckles.
So why are you angry at Newcastle owner Mike Ashley?
Because he has Rafa Benitez. Newcastle have no business having Rafa Benitez if they continue to function the way they do. Rafa Benitez, I know there's jokes. I've made plenty of jokes about him. The dude won the Champions League. The man has managed Liverpool. He's managed Inter Milan. He's managed Real Madrid. He's managed Chelsea, Valencia. He's been all over the world. That Newcastle have him is a coup.
Yep.
More on that when I get to my prediction.
But they're treating him badly.
Yep. He's entering the final year of his contract. There's apparently a clause in his contract that if he quits, he must pay the club £6 million.
Yep.
Don't know how you enforce that.
But here's the thing. His contract is up at the end of the year, right? Sorry, next summer. So this is Rafa Benitez's last season. Mike Ashley is not supporting Rafa Benitez here, right? He's essentially told him you got to sell before you can buy. He's not allowed him to make any of the signings that he wants. I think he was promised at least 50 million to spend, which is really one good midfielder these days. It's not much of a transfer budget. And then they didn't even give him that. So it's not looking good at Newcastle.
He's also refusing, Ashley is refusing to commit funds to upgrade the facility, fund the U23 setup properly, or enhance the academy at all. In addition, Rafa Benitez, he has gotten a few of the things he wanted, but he requested a number 10, a center back, and a left back. Hasn't gotten any of those three.
The other thing is, normally, this isn't new, right? There's normally a Mike Ashley is stingy story, manager doing what he can with very little story. I've never before seen a player's unhappy story. Now, this has been resolved now. Just before I came in, this was resolved. But there was a thing where they hadn't agreed the bonus structure with the players, and the players essentially went on media strike, where all the first-team players refused to speak to the media. And they were friendly to the media, said, it's not your fault. We're doing this to essentially protest the way the team is treating us. This is really rare for a Premier League team because money is not usually in short supply. It's normally quite easy to set up the bonus structure and keep everybody happy money-wise, right? So this is a really bad sign for relations between the board and the players.
It is. And within that realm, you look at what they have done this window. And the thing that I keep going back to is all the stories about you have to sell before you can buy. They've done that because their net spend right now is negative 18.2 million euros.
Yep. A big chunk of that is Alexander Mitrovic, right? The centre forward who was on loan to Fulham. Then Fulham bought him for 22 million.
Yep.
Newcastle kind of needed a new striker. We'll talk about what they did do. But in the end, they sold Mitrovic for 22 million to Fulham. Here's my prediction.
Wait, can I interject just to say real fast?
I guess you already have.
We talked about this yesterday, but they sold Mitrovic for 22 million, which again, okay, fine, you sold a player. But the reality is Fulham were desperate to get Mitrovic. And as we talked about yesterday, Fulham fans were there's no way we're going to be able to get him because they're going to want 40 million, 45 million. To get him for half that is insane.
Yep. Here's my prediction. Either December 22nd or May 12th. Alexander Mitrovic will score for Fulham against Newcastle.
You can lock that on.
That's going to happen.
That is a
right?
guarantee.
It could May 12th. It could even be like the goal that relegates Newcastle, right? If things go really badly for Newcastle. And I say that just because I think Mitrovic will be motivated. I think he's got all kinds of qualities as a striker. And also the way things are going, like Newcastle fans just don't seem to have a lot of good fortune in terms of nice things happening to them. So yeah, Mitrovic to score for Fulham against Newcastle, December 22nd or May 12th. Asterisk date subject to change for TV coverage.
All right, perfect. Well, my prediction is negative as well.
So instead, it's hard to make a positive.
Well, I'm going to hold off on the prediction then, because let's talk about at least some of the positives.
Yeah.
So as you said, they have gone about replacing Mitrovic by bringing in Salomon Rondon.
Yeah.
They did that as a loan swap with Dwight Gale?
Big Venezuelan striker. You remember him that he used to play for West Brom in the Premier League. Yeah, they did a loan swap, Dwight Gale for Salomon Rondon. That tells you a lot about how Newcastle are going to play this year.
It sure does.
Right? It means they're going to go a bit direct, hope for some Rondon on his chest hold-up play, or maybe he knocks it down for, who's the attacking midfielder? Is it Ayoze?
It'll be Ayoze Perez.
Ayoze Perez, yeah. So that's pretty much what they're going to be doing.
But Perez is a winger. Like, he's playing as the number 10 because they don't have one. Again, what Rafa Benitez requested. So instead, I think you're going to see a very similar Newcastle team to what you saw last year. It'll be Rondon up top. It will be like an attacking 3 and a 4-2-3-1 of Kennedy, Perez, and Matt Ritchie.
Yep.
Not much reinforcements there. Probably Diame and Shelby as well. Really, the only things...
Key. They signed...
That's one of the big ones.
Key from Swansea.
For free.
I kind of think Key's a little too similar to John Joe Shelby. They both love a big diagonal pass. Now you've got two of those guys doing very similar things.
Yeah.
I sort of think the only reason they picked him up is because he was free.
Yeah,
right.
I think so.
He fits the budget,
and he's a reliable Premier League player. And he's a capable backup / occasional starter.
But you know what I mean? That's what Rafa Benitez is reduced to, right? Yeah. He's capable. He's free. I guess we'll take him.
The biggest outlay, Yoshinori Mutsu, Japanese 26-year-old forward from Mainz, £10.7 million.
I don't know much about him.
Don't know anything about him. And won't start because Salomon Rondon will. I think the only player who might start of their signings, aside from Martin Dubravka, their goalkeeper from last season who they signed on a permanent deal, is maybe, looking for it, Fabian Schär.
I was about to say.
Yeah, 26-year-old centre back, and that's especially because Lejeune, their usual starter last season, will begin the season injured.
Yep. Fabian Schär, you will have seen playing alongside Akanji for Switzerland at the World Cup. I think he's a really good player.
I agree.
This is a good centre-back. This is a guy who can play the ball out of the back. Once again, though, the only reason he's at Newcastle, Deportivo La Coruña were relegated. So I'm assuming there was a relegation release clause because they got him for like €3.5 million, right? So Rafa Benitez went bargain hunting.
Yeah, for €4 million. So
there we go. Got himself some bargains. I'm still not convinced it's enough to stay up.
No, I don't think it is. And I especially don't think it is because my prediction...
it might be, but I'm not convinced.
My prediction is that Rafa Benitez will either finish this season or start next season as the Leicester City manager.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's what I think may happen. I think Rafa Benitez has been a very faithful servant to Newcastle, to the Newcastle fans. I think the Guardian preview made a very good point that, like, the biggest problem with Newcastle right now is strangely the Newcastle fans, because they're so all about this team and love that team so much that they're going to show up no matter what.
So no
matter how poorly run they are, they're still going to be there, which means there's not that much motivation for, forgive me,
Ashley?
Thank you. I had a brain fart there, for him to change much. And so I do think that if, say, Claude Puel doesn't start the season great, maybe the first 4 or 5 games, that's when they sacked Craig Shakespeare, don't go so well, I wouldn't be surprised if they look at Rafa Benitez. You think about that Leicester squad we've already talked about, it's a very good team. You put Rafa Benitez in there, it's an even better team. So that's where I wonder if maybe they start saying, oh, we'll cover that fee, we'll pay you more, we'll give you the transfer fees. Here you go.
So the other problem is, I think I mentioned this earlier, Mike Ashley wants $400 million for Newcastle United. It's a really high asking price. We're kind of in a catch-22, right? No one's going to offer that, but he's going to try and keep it in the Premier League and just keep asking for that until someone buys it. We might be trapped here forever until Newcastle get relegated, and then he sells at a discount.
I think what
like he does at his stores.
Here's my branding idea. I like it. Here's my branding idea. You get a cold climate person to buy Newcastle, and you only recruit cold climate players.
What's cold climate mean?
Because
like England?
Yeah, no, I mean like
Iceland?
Scandinavia, Iceland, Russia. Like basically, because I think there was a long time ago when you had the Big Four before Man City did what Man City did, before Tottenham were considered in there. There was some speculation on like Fox Football Phone, and I think about who's the next club.
Wow, you're really rolling about the ears here.
I am.
With Nick Webster.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe even Ronaldo on there. I could be wrong. But there was a conversation about who enters that group.
Yeah.
And the the major nominee they all discussed was Newcastle, but the argument against it was
that team.
It is, and huge, huge fan base, massive stadium. The one drawback they said was that it's just so cold, nobody will want to live there in the winter. Nobody will want to live there permanently. But you get people who are used to being really cold.
Do you remember the story in the 90s of Faustino Esprilla?
Told it was in the beach?
Told there was a beach. And there is a beach, but it is not where you don't go sunbathing.
No, you don't. You do for about 12 minutes, and then you're back inside with a coat on.
Final thing I want to talk about with Newcastle is, again, the style of play. I think if you've never seen...
I feel like you stepped on my my cold climate owner plan. I think it was pretty brilliant.
I'm sure that will definitely happen. Is the way that they defend under Rafa Benitez is a very structured... Essentially 4-4-2, maybe 4-4-1-1, whatever you want to say Perez is doing. But the back two banks of four move like synchronized swimmers, almost. You'll see them all in a group, shuffle left, shuffle right, shuffle up, shuffle back. They just keep the shape. And it is quite hard to play through, right? Not impermeable, but quite hard to play through. Here's the thing I wanted to get to is to talk about DeAndre Yedlin.
I was wondering if we were going to do this again.
We'll have to talk about DeAndre Yedlin.
I meant if we were going to skip over an American player.
Yeah, we don't want to, right? DeAndre Yedlin, America's right back, is going to be Newcastle's right back, not least because they don't have money for an upgrade, right?
Graham Zusi would like a word with you, but sure.
He does a fine job for Newcastle, DeAndre Yedlin. But I think it's really noticeable when he plays for the US, it's not like he's doing the same thing, right? I think with Newcastle, he's asked to tuck in, stay with the back four a lot more, doesn't get that many chances to spring forward and attack. He will do it, and we'll see the highlights when he does it, but it's worth knowing that he doesn't do that for most of the game because of what Newcastle are asking him and all the other defenders and midfielders to do.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do think that he is, of the two fullbacks, the one who is given more free reign to get forward because usually he's on the side with Matt Ritchie. They combine very well. Matt Ritchie can go inside, cause an overload there. DeAndre Yedlin can patrol the flank.
All right, is that enough on Newcastle?
Yeah, other than the only other minor prediction I had was that I think there's also a chance that Rafa Benitez is one of the first two managers to go. And I think nobody's been talking about that.
Fired, you mean?
Claude Puel has been the one that I think is most betting sites have him as the most likely to be fired.
Here's my thing. I'm not interested in your sack race.
Why not?
I don't know. For some reason, that is not a Premier League thing that appeals to me to think about who gets fired first.
I don't I disagree. I do disagree, actually, because I think it's interesting if it conveys what's happening off the field more so than he didn't do very well, the team hasn't bought into it. I always go back to who is the crazy person who managed Sunderland?
I mean, take your pick. Paolo Di Canio?
That's the one. Remember when he had the whole team buying in and everybody believed in it? I'm not just trying to toot my own horn here, but everybody's like, oh, he's done it. He's turned them around. This is going to be it. And my prediction was he's the first one fired. And he was. Because it speaks to things have gone very wrong and there's a lot of drama behind the scenes. And that's what I find most interesting is Rafa Benitez has refused to leave. He said he's gone under the contract. He said he wants to be there. But it has all those symptoms of Hull City last year when they had 9 players to start the season and just felt like nothing is working here. Something's got to give. It feels that way with Newcastle.
Oh, Newcastle fans, just know we're thinking of you.
We certainly are.
We're thinking of you.
I love DeAndre Yedlin. It makes me 2% angrier that DeAndre Yedlin is there. It adds on to my hatred of Mike Ashley that much.
But at least he's in the Premier League.
There you go.
All right, so we still have tomorrow. We have 5 more teams to go. I'm going to say that those teams are Southampton, Tottenham.
And then the W's.
Watford, West Ham, Wolves.
You got it.
That's 5. There's your final 5 Premier League teams. That will be Thursday's Total Soccer Show. Then Friday we'll be in to watch Man United Leicester, the Premier League curtain raiser.
Good work by you remembering those teams. You didn't call Watford by their proper title.
The Hornets?
Relegated Watford.
Hey, that's not... We'll get to that tomorrow.
That's not... Well, we'll get to it tomorrow. Is what just happened.
Well, basically, I haven't researched them yet, so I don't have an opinion. All right, so Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. To close the show, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, roughly 10.
I was wondering if you were going to go all the way.
Scouting reports to read you today.
And as we said yesterday, we are catching up. We have many reports to get to. So some of these a little bit old, starting with Jared Morgenstern scouting Alphonso Davies, 17-year-old Canadian winger for Bayern Munich. While we were on tour, Fonzie became the Canadian Arjen Robben, that's what Jared says, when he signed for Bayern, with Vancouver receiving a fee of around £13 million. The deal shattered...
Why is this in pounds?
I don't know. That's where it came from.
Right.
You want to take it up with Jared? Don't take it up with me. Shooting the messenger over here. The deal shattered the previous record when Villarreal paid €6.5 million. Oh, that makes it more confusing. For Josie Altidore in 2009. The move will no doubt increase Fonzie's wages, as he was previously earning a relatively embarrassing $72,500 a season.
It's 3 different currencies there.
Keeping you on your toes.
Go on, Fonzie. John Youngblood is scouting Tashan Oakley-Booth, the 18-year-old English central midfielder for Tottenham Hotspur. John says Tashan Oakley-Booth was included in Spurs' squad for their tour of the US, which Pochettino was quoted as saying was the youngster's time to impress.
When we did the host swap and Alexis Guerrero was on here, you guys did some scouting, and he brought to my attention that it might be Tayshaun. And I think I need someone to tell me if it's Tayshaun or Tashaun.
Oh, yeah. John, will you please look into that for us and let us
I would appreciate it. John Adams, not that John Adams, the second presidential reference on the day, scouting Shaun Harrison, 21-year-old English attacker for Tottenham, ? Unlike Tashaun, Harrison was not included in Tottenham's North American tour. There has been no news regarding his next move, despite his contract with Tottenham reportedly expiring at the end of June. Everything is fine, probably. I'm not worried. You're worried, says John.
Thanks, John. Todd Brannan is scouting Cameron Carter-Vickers, the 20-year-old American defender for Tottenham. Todd says CCV was included in Tottenham's pre-season tour squad. Not a Tottenham pre-season news.
Oh, there's more coming.
And played the full 90 in the win over Roma and their 2-2 draw with Barcelona. Tottenham conceded in the third minute against Roma, and CCV failed to stay with his man against Barca, giving Munir an open header for the first goal. CCV settled down in both matches and hopefully impressed his manager in the end.
Emphasis on hopefully.
Soccer's a 90-minute game, though, so even if you impress in the end, you got to impress in the beginning as well.
There we go.
And the middle.
Words of wisdom. Scott Solari scouting Malcolm, the 21-year-old Brazilian winger for Barcelona.
Yeah.
Barca snagged Malcolm for 41 million, I think, euros at the last minute before he boarded his plane to Rome. Roma fans were waiting at the airport, but instead he'll be lighting it up in La Liga this season. Scott says as a result, he may need someone new to scout since there will be plenty of eyes on Malcolm.
Fair enough. Grayson Smith is scouting Lautaro Martinez, the 20-year-old Argentine striker for Inter. Grayson says Lautaro Martinez joined Inter from Racing Club for a reported 22.7 million euros.
Before you proceed, I just want you to know this next sentence, I don't know why, it makes me laugh every single time I read it.
Okay, so Lautaro Martinez, he scored a poacher's goal in a pre-season friendly in a 3-3 draw with Zenit, and then got the MLS assist in a 1-1 draw with Sheffield United.
What are you doing? What are you doing, Inter Milan? Zenit, and then, you know what? Sheffield United. That's the one that's going to get us ready.
In that second game, Grayson says Lautaro shot early, often, and poorly.
Sam Creve scouting Ezequiel Barco, 18-year-old Argentine attacker for Atlanta United. I think we talked about this on the Cooligans podcast.
We sure did.
Barco was called into the Argentina U20 camp, but was unable to attend. We did not talk about that because the bigger news, which we did discuss, is that he was suspended by Tata Martino for allegedly having an affair with a teammate's girlfriend.
You know who the beneficiary of that was?
Who's that?
Andrew Carlton.
He was.
Got some of Ezekiel's minutes. I heard on the Cooligans they're advancing a conspiracy theory that it was Andrew Carlton that set this whole thing up.
Is that House of Carlton? Is that why? Okay. I was wondering why that was the title today.
Amy Sparks is scouting Pierre da Silva, the 20-year-old American midfielder on loan at St. Louis FC from Orlando City. Amy says Pierre da Silva scored the tying goal as St. Louis FC came from behind twice in the second half. Pierre da Silva said, "It feels great to get some playing time." Since the last time he saw the field was their 3-0 loss at Colorado Springs on May 26th.
That's a long time ago.
That man needs minutes.
He does. Tim Higgins scouting Christopher Nkunku, 20-year-old French midfielder for PSG. Christopher was included in PSG's preseason travel squad, but has also been consistently linked with a move away, with Fiorentina being the club most consistently linked. No official news yet if Christopher will be with PSG or a different team at the start of the season.
Todd Ito. We met Todd Ito.
We did.
In Chicago. Todd Ito is scouting Takefusa Kubo, the 17-year-old Japanese attacker for FC Tokyo.
Best name in soccer.
Takefusa Kubo? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Todd says the J-League is back in action, but Kubo hasn't played for the first team yet. Instead, he's been bouncing back and forth between their bench and the FC Tokyo U23s, where he's been performing well. Takefusa Kubo also got minutes this summer with Japan's U19 team, scoring a brace, 1 goal from open play and another from the penalty spot. Thank you, Todd, for the report.
And thank you, Takefusa Kubo, for being named Takefusa Kubo. Final report, Marcus Goodrich scouting Shiloh Tracy, 20-year-old English right winger for Tottenham, another Tottenham player. Despite early reports that Tracy was expected to be sold this summer, Tottenham instead offered him a 2-year contract.
Congrats, Shiloh.
Yeah, Marcus remains hopeful of a loan to a lower-level team where Shiloh might be able to play consistently.
Well, thank you to everybody for today's scouting reports. If you'd like to join the Scouting Network, it's totalsoccershow.com/join. If you have joined the network and I haven't assigned you a scout, first of all, my apologies. The tour was very distracting. But email me. Email Daryl, D-A-R-A-L, at TotalSoccerShow.com. I gave the correct spelling, so you know that I mean it. I really want the email. Let me know that you're waiting to have your player assigned, and I will get them to you over the weekend, I promise. Daryl at TotalSoccerShow.com. Let me know you're waiting for your player.
There we are.
Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to preview 5 more Premier League teams with me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll be back again tomorrow with Southampton, Tottenham, Watford, West Ham, and the mighty Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club.
Hooray for Man United catharsis.